Howdy, you are listening to Booted Dudes, a podcast about Doomtown Reloaded. Today, the dudes interview the fine folks from Pinebox Entertainment and talk about the future of Doomtown. A quick word of warning though, as this is a recorded Skype talk, the sound quality can be a bit subpar at times and there is a few buzzing noises in between. We apologize for the inconvenience and hope it won't detract from your experience.
Hello and welcome to episode 17 of the Booted Dudes podcast. My name is Michael.
And my name is Hans. So, Michael, how booted are you today?
I am super booted. I am heartbroken and heart booted because this is the first podcast that Hans and I ever record not being in the same room. Hello? Are you guys there?
We're here.
Wow.
So today we have got three guests. Maybe you can introduce yourself.
I'm Alex from Pinebox Entertainment. Some of you know me from Gomorrah Gazette.
Hi, Alex. Great to have you on the podcast.
With me, I guess, I brought David Lapp, our community manager, and Emre, and I'm sorry, I will butcher your last name, Gazelsu.
That's not too bad. Hi, I'm Emre Gazelsu.
He is our lead designer.
Oh.
Okay, cool. So we've got like VIPs on the podcast.
Oh God, I'm so going to have to edit this intro heavily. That was a train wreck to start with. Hans, we need to learn how to introduce guests. Okay, so you guys, it's so great to have you here.
Good to be here.
You are three people out of how many? 5 who run Pinebox Entertainment? Wow.
Yep.
So
and an army of very dedicated playtesters who we appreciate very much.
So there's a transition going on from Doomtown being kind of booted to the new Doomtown, and I think you will tell us something about that, I guess.
Yeah.
So the first question would be, how did it all happen?
After Origins was when kind of the news came out that the game was ending. A few of us had been on that community council. I think that was Orange and I've known Emre from L5R and Alex just from Doomtown and talking to the Gazette. So a few of us had gotten together and talked about, desire to not only continue Doomtown, but make other games. And, how would we go about doing this? So we had a meeting with Pinnacle, shared our ideas with them. We seemed to be on board about a lot of things. Took a little while to figure out the details, how we wanted to do it. But we finally got to the point that we could publicly say that Doomtown is continuing.
So is this your first foray into the territories of designing a game?
Emre was on design for Doomtown Reloaded, taking over for Will Abbott. And then for me, my own history was just working at a game store. I've never actually gone into designing, but I have been involved with the community for L5R, Doomtown, and some other games. I think, Alex, you had expressed designing as well, right?
Yeah, a little bit, just kind of as a side hobby, something I enjoyed doing and looking into. But I also came from working in a game store and playing games and being parts of communities. So,
oh, okay.
My background is not as game oriented. I actually worked in public finance for 4 years.
Useful.
No.
And then I actually went back to get my master's in systems engineering, and that transitioned into a PhD. So I am not coming with the same game background as some others.
Man, so it's a wide variety of experiences that you guys bring together with Pinebox Entertainment. So can you tell us now that you have formed as a corporate entity or something? I have no idea how things like that work. What are your next moves? What is going to happen with Doomtown Reloaded in the near future?
On that one, our focus is the current set. We want to make sure we're producing something that fans of Deadlands and Doomtown are going to love. To that extent, it's our primary focus. We do have a couple of non-Doomtown things we're discussing and looking into, and we do have some plans for Doomtown moving forward, but we aren't ready to discuss anything with that either.
And I think everybody is dying to know, what about new cards? When is that going to happen and how?
We can't really speak to a timeline, but how is... We're actually, what would you say, 75% through playtesting at this point, Emre?
Yeah, I'd say that's actually a pretty accurate timeline.
A lot of it, since we are working with Pinnacle, is their schedule thing and their projects as well. So a solid timeline we can't speak to yet, but soon, TM, that's all I can really say to that, honestly.
Everybody's been asking how, when, everything. Unfortunately, that's
the biggest one we can't answer. Yeah.
We joke that's still sealed in the pine box. We can answer a lot of other questions, but that one we unfortunately can't comment at this time.
No problem.
Yeah, just remember, Pinnacle's running the show right now, so
yeah,
there are certain things that they are in charge of, and they know, and we just don't know fully yet.
And now, that said, they've entrusted us a great deal with the actual creative element, the set design, the story, the card mechanic, all of that. So it's been a really fun working environment because of it.
You did mention those last two Kickstarters. I think fans of the books themselves, particularly the art, might see something familiar in the next set.
Yep.
There was some rumor that there were actually some saddlebags following Blood Moon Rising, that there were cards already designed. Will they appear, or are you planning something completely new?
You want to field that one, Emery?
So there are some cards that were kind of lost in transition, to lack of a better way of putting it. That said, we're looking at exactly how we want to use them. As I said before, we have to remember that Pinnacle is a different company than AEG, or PEG is a different company than AEG, I should say. So they have different ideas on how they want to use those cards. And we're kind of balancing all of that currently, trying to figure out the best way to meet their demands and meet the players' needs as well.
So will there be like a kind of Pinebox and saddlebag structure, or are you planning for something totally new?
There's still a lot of discussion around that topic. We don't have anything solidified yet. We have ideas. We are looking into this, what we think is the best solution for the players. But as of now, we don't have anything solid to speak about yet.
The first thought would be to continue the same model, but that's actually not clear. So you could just change the distribution model.
You know, one of the issues some people have with the LCG model is the speed in which it's released.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've been looking on the community about that. One of the examples being, you know, most of a lot of the games, you know, you might buy a set when it comes out, maybe make a deck. Next week you're tweaking it, you go to a tournament, and then all of a sudden the next set is out. Some pros and cons to that. For the most part, we are looking at a lesser, not as rapid release, I should say.
You can confirm that all the new cards that are designed and everything that is going to come up is going to be compatible with everything that we are playing with right now.
100%.
Correct.
In fact, if Emery wants to share a little bit with you, we are taking into account what needs to be improved upon. We think what archetypes and things like that players are really interested in seeing improved upon, and he's been working really, really hard on making sure that we meet those demands.
First off the bat, let me say that, you know, big shout out to DBO and Will Abbott for doing the design work that they did, and also the designers that came before them. You know, I think they did a lot of great work. That said, the community has voiced that they have some concerns about certain archetypes and certain themes. I think for the set we're currently looking at, probably the Law Dogs are the ones we're looking at kind of rounding out some of their rough edges the best we can, given the kind of just the one set that we're able to do that in. I don't know.
Sorry, that was mine again.
Did I say something wrong? Lap, is that your buzzer?
Nope.
Yeah, I turned off trying to. I tried turning off the notifications,
but I think one thing that we are really trying to do is maybe, I guess the best way to put it is potentially for a little bit at least slow down the expansion of archetypes and different avenues of all the factions getting into different things, and really, at least for the time being, fleshing them out more so they can be more fully developed. I think one thing that was great for the first 2 years was that we were able to bring a lot of variety to all the different factions. But I think what we'll hopefully be able to do for at least a set or two is kind of fully flesh them out and give them a more fully fleshed out theme so players can play with them in a much more focused and comprehensive manner.
That sounds cool.
To that extent, I've actually sent you guys our first spoiler.
We have a Law Dogs dude. He is an ace of spades, and his name is Stuart Davidson. He is a 0-draw, 1-influence Law Dogs dude with a cost of 4 and an upkeep of 0 gold rock. His ability reads Noon Boot. Discard a card. Choose an opposing dude without a bounty and pay ghost rock equal to that dude's influence to give that dude 1 bounty.
Fans of Deadlands will recognize that as the narrator from the Back East source book. A lot of stuff you guys will be seeing that isn't overtly in your face Deadlands, but we're hoping some people figure out what they're from.
I've always been on the lookout for these kinds of things, and a lot of the times with the older Doomtown Reloaded cards, I felt like it was taking place in the same world, but then a lot of it was a bit detached. So most of the characters you meet in Doomtown Reloaded, you also only find in the Doomtown source book of the Deadlands role-playing game.
Right. We're trying to move away from that, in that, one of the things creatively that we can do is we're not necessarily confined to Gomorrah. And okay. I'm gonna leave it at that, so we don't spoil too much.
Now we are anchoring it in a familiar character story-wise. Our story is a little bit of a prequel to Doomtown Reloaded, and it does star Poncho. That's all I can say.
I think there was the problem in Law Dogs that you had to get bounty on enemy dudes. So this is a card who could mitigate that, or?
One of the common complaints that I've kind of heard over the months, maybe years at this point, is that Law Dogs dudes generally are a little expensive, and that Law Dogs dudes generally have a tough time giving people bounty in a cost-effective manner, I would say. So what we're hoping is Stuart Davidson can kind of give Law Dogs players an option across all outfits to really kind of get their bounty mechanics flowing.
That's really great, because I've been tinkering a lot with Law Dogs decks lately, and it's always come down to how can I get bounty on a dude in the first place. And it's very hard if you're not the core faction, or sometimes the the armatorium. Come on.
The armatorium.
Oh, the arsenal.
Armatorium.
It's the armatorium now. New errata.
No, we actually, it's funny you say that, because we do think this might see a little boost in people playing Arsenal, which I think may be one of the least played outfit cards. We're hoping to give that a little bit of a boost.
Yeah, totally. That's great. Because another problem I've had when playing the Arsenal was when you rely on a lot of hearts cards in order to use your Arsenal ability.
Right.
I oftentimes clogged my hand with expensive gear or stuff that I couldn't invent quite yet, or I didn't have the time to invent. And I think discarding a card is more a blessing than a curse in Doomtown Reloaded. So it sounds like it's a really good way to get rid of a bad starting hand or some stuff that just ended up in your hand and you can't play it. And also, you pay Ghost Rock equal to that dude's influence. And there's a lot of 0 influence dudes out there. I think that card is a lot better than I thought when I first looked at it. Because, whenever I read pay Ghost Rock, I'm like, oh God, I'm broke. I can't pay Ghost Rock. But you don't need to sometimes. That's great.
I think one thing that also we kind of want going forward is more interactions with influence. I think in general, influence has kind of just been a stat. I think going forward, we really want to start bringing more. Having more influence can give you more benefits than just not losing the game. Influence isn't just for a landslide anymore, is the way I would tagline that.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's Who You Know is a card that I've never seen in play as of yet.
There's a really good, interesting deck you can do with that, having Fred Ames with a huge bullet rating, calling people out. When people sit down and make a deck, you want to ask, well, how am I going to win this game independent of what my opponent is doing? How am I going to get control points? So we want to try to make as much variety as we can to get to that victory, other than just, I'm going to play this brand of shooter.
And one thing I'd like to say is that any of the cards that end up being successful, all of the credit should be given to the playtesters. They do a lot of work, and if you saw how many iterations these cards go through, The reason why they're good cards and good cards for the environment is the hard work of the playtesters. Any bad cards, you can blame completely on me.
Are you the sole designer of cards for Doomtown Reloaded at the moment?
As of now, I'm doing the vast majority of the design work. That being said, I owe a lot to both Will and DBO in the past. There's literally a giant data bank of cards that never saw playtests that I always look back upon and kind of maybe look at an old card and say, hey, that might be a good thing to pull in. And like I said, like our playtesters do a lot of work for us, and they help immensely with the process. So it's the only reason why I'm capable of being the sole designer. I say that in quotes because I'm more of a believer it's a big team effort.
Are they all in the United States?
Playtest wise, we're actually more international than we are domestic. You'd be surprised to know that we have 3 groups in the U.S., if I remember correctly. No, yeah, 3 active groups. A group in Boston. We have technically 3 groups in the U.K., a group in Knoxville. We have a group in Denmark, and we have a group in Reading, Pennsylvania. And we're hoping to, going forward, hopefully we'll be able to expand it even further. We kind of have a limited amount of PT time and resources available to us, so that's where we currently sit. But we did just add South Carolina. I'm sure everyone remembers David Hammond and all the great things he's done, or horrible things he's done in the meta, depending on how you want to think about it in some ways. But we're really happy to have them on board. And we're hoping to we're hoping we can maybe add a little bit more PT. And I think at that point we can have good representation from hopefully not only around the U.S., but around the world.
I don't know if we can comment on this, but one of the things moving forward we really wanted to get on was have an Octagon team.
Yeah.
Because we do have several strong players. You guys, I'm sure, heard of Richard Carter, that may not have a group locally, but would be great to have on board if we could get him and a few others that could play online.
Having Octagon would be very nice, to say the least.
If there are people who would like to maybe become part of your playtesting team, should they reach out to you?
They can email us. I think we're at the pineboxentertainment@gmail.com. Like we said, with limited resources, we did kind of get to where we needed to for this set, but we are looking to expand moving forward with Octagon being the primary goal, but we're definitely open to having more playtest groups.
As of now, you have already released a new FAQ and errata, as well as new organized rules. The rules of the game have been a bit reorganized and streamlined, and they are all to be found on your website. Reading those, there's at least one new mechanic that Hans and me became aware of, and we've already speculated a lot, and we've probably been wrong a lot about it in our recent podcast. So you're going to introduce legendary cards, possibly, in the future into the game?
I would say in this set.
Oh, I see. So would you care to elaborate? Because I think what Hans and me were most wondering was what exactly does it mean to have a legendary card that modifies your outfit? What is the thematic standpoint of that?
Well, Alex, is there if I go into the history of how this came up?
Yeah, actually, I think it's interesting.
As we said, we wanted to bring greater Deadlands into Doomtown. And part of something that was really wanted by Pinnacle was to have the servitors featured in this set. That was, I think, for Emery, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, the biggest design challenge would be how do you introduce these guys into the card game? We can't exactly have them as dudes running around Gomorrah.
I think the quote was, when I have to consider Jasper a 400 stud, there might be some bigger consideration.
So we felt the best way to introduce them into the game is to have them as a attachment to your home. In the sense that prior to starting Posse, when you reveal your outfit card, you reveal a legend associated. Now, we're not making this a requirement to play the game. These are optional cards that often come at a cost to include them in your deck. some of the things said have been correct so far. We are looking at they do modify certain themes, give you a certain ability. It's something that we think will be really interesting for the game, and I think Emery has done an excellent job along with playtest on ensuring that we're not breaking the game with this. It's just something interesting that is an option to the players. And to go further with that, at Gen Con, the first tournament we have planned, we are actually going to provide each player with one of these cards for their deck. For that tournament only, it will be a requirement to play with one of these cards. So leading up to it, we are going to have, a lot of presentation on the website about what these cards do, how they can interact. And the very special prize we have planned for the winner of that event is they can name the next one we're going to make.
Cool.
So I have heard in your podcast someone mentioned Blackjack. So if you want to try to get him as a legend, you might want to try to go to this tournament.
Can I participate via Skype?
That would be nice.
Well, I can't participate in the tournament, so I can sit there playing your deck for you.
So the function is more like agendas in a Game of Thrones, or?
That's a good comparison. It's not exactly identical, but it's a good comparison.
So there's a card which could modify any outfit, just like they are not connected to law dogs or...
We kind of want to leave options creatively open for players to kind of be able to use them as they saw fit. Now, that's not to say that won't change in the future, but the ones you see now are not faction specific.
Okay.
That's cool.
Yeah,
I
pretty
really
cool.
like the idea because, with new cards, when it's just regular cards, usually the question is, what archetype is there that I can incorporate this card into? And then oftentimes, new cards have to stand up against every card that has been released so far. And it's really hard to introduce new cards that are not too strong, but still viable to use. And with those cards that actually modify your outfit, there's going to be a lot of new archetypes coming out of that. So, when you face a certain deck, like when you face a Desolation Row deck, you don't immediately know, what kind of deck is this? Because it could be modified by a legendary card that allows it to go a different way than you would expect from the faction otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, you could play a little bit of misdirection with that to show it to kind of throw people off. Not showing, a lot of times people will just show their starting posse and then there's an assumption what you're playing against. So we feel like it could open up the door of that not being so much the case.
Probably there's going to be more than one within the first set of cards that you're going to release. Have you thought about how many legendary cards there are going to be initially?
We know exactly how many there are going to be.
Are you telling us?
I don't know. Should we?
It's up to you, Alex.
It's up to Emery.
I think anybody.
Lap did say the servitors. So
There you go.
let you guys go.
Any of the Deadlands fans can figure out how many are going to be released.
Okay, cool.
I think I'm going to build a Hellstrom deck, no matter what it is. I just really want to be a part of that.
I hope so. He's cool.
Can't wait.
He will have a very, let's put it like this, an outfit from Classic he'll have a very strong tie to, and I'll leave it at that.
One other question that we have discussed before the podcast, Hans and me, was organized play. Do you have any idea yet what kind of direction you're going to take with that topic?
We're talking a lot about that, getting a lot of community feedback about that. I know one plan that on the call out blog that we already had listed is we are having a kit associated with the set's release that is going to come out. We don't have a set date yet, but that will be the first kit we have planned. The next step would be the Gen Con World Championship event, which is separate from the Servitor event, and then the European Championship event. That event is currently being handled by IQ Games with Heidi and Scott. They're kind of taking the reins on that one because we kind of want to allow them to work with their own schedule. So that's the first thing that we're looking at. From there, there will definitely be a series post-Gen Con. I believe we're looking at something brand new where AEG had the badge series. We want to come up with something that would be either our own thing or similar to that. We're also looking at, how we want to distribute that. As the Outlaw series happened, those kits got distributed directly to the TOs. I heard recently there is a desire to have that, but we also want to have something rewarding towards stores. So we are working on these systems. So I think someone had just posted on the Facebook group that question, and did say the short answer is yes, this is all being worked on and is going to happen. Just the details we're still working out.
This entire project kind of happened pretty quickly. We had some plans, but now we're having to evaluate them and look at their viability. That said, we do understand how important organized play is to a game like Doomtown Reloaded and to a community based around a game like Doomtown Reloaded, and we are not taking that lightly.
That's how the Outlaw series started too, because we knew there was a desire for it, and to throw out there as well, the NEMA cards that AEG didn't get a chance to honor will be honored by Pinebox. So keep an eye out for those as well.
Oh, one more question. AEG had this very, I think, consumer-friendly and very nice habit of releasing errata cards in consequent saddlebags. I know that is a way that not many other publishers have taken, probably because it's also associated with a lot of costs. But have you thought about how you're going to handle erratas for cards in the future?
Yes. Well, we've thought about it. Our first plan is hopefully to get some sweet-looking errata promos out there for these early organized play events. Not having a regular release schedule like AEG did, at least not initially, doesn't give us the option of packing them in and going, okay, well, here they are. We kind of have to be a little bit more creative with how we're going to get those to the players, but we do not believe they should cost the players. Those are our changes, and we need to make sure you have access to updated cards. So we are looking at it. It is important. For the first wave, we're doing a couple of early erratas as alt arts. And
cool.
Ones that haven't been released yet, and we think you'll dig them.
I think going the route of making promos with errata text for organized play is very smart. I think I've seen this with Imperial Assault for the first time. There have been some promo cards that were also errataing some misprints. So, maybe we can have some updated paralysis marks in our hands sometime soon.
That is a plan. That is definitely something we're discussing.
Should it just be like a picture of aspirin, the paralysis mark alternative art? get over the headaches that caused.
I was going to say find the I know there's an old Elixir classic card from Snake Oil Salesman. We should probably just use something like that for it.
Now, with all of that said, there is something we wanted to go ahead and get out there and get players kind of thinking a little differently, and that's what the faction icons mean. Expanding into the larger Deadlands universe means we could either create a whole bunch of new factions, more than we could count, or we could use the existing 6 icons to represent flavor themes and mechanical themes. So the first example of this is the Sloan Gang, the Crossed Pistols. We're kind of zooming out a little bit, and the icon now is going to represent more of those on the wrong side of the law, outlaws, murderers, mercenaries, your general shady types.
Okay.
I call those people friends.
And to that extent, we actually, to kind of show you what we're talking about, brought a spoiler with that as well.
One more question about the fluff behind the text. When there is going to be a new storyline, are you going to start from scratch, or are we going to hear again from characters like the new Sloan or Abraham Grothy?
Well, I was going to the thing is, even though DTR had under AAG told a complete story, at this point we have a lot of options for what we can tell. Working with Pinnacle and having everything be canon in the greater Deadlands universe, there's a lot that we can explore. So I think the quick answer would be that there's nothing off the table.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Because in the past of Doomtown, and I think in Doomtown Classic this was a thing, it's always so hard once you've reached an end of an arc to decide, like, how are you going to continue? You know, like, is this faction that has been defeated, is it now out of the game, or does it change? And we've seen that with the Fourth Ring now, because you're going to have a lot of cards revolving around clowns and circus-related people. But now that the Fourth Ring has been kind of destroyed in the in-game lore, and you have this new Full Moon Brotherhood, it's going to be very interesting to be able to combine all these new cards with the old ones. But I assume it's also in designing, it can be quite an obstacle to get around.
To say the least. Yeah. I'll never forget when DBO and I learned, you know, the whole clown crazy ICP posse of Fourth Ring was going away and we were going a whole nother avenue. I think the first question we asked ourselves, like, okay, now we just need to figure out how this can tie into this mechanically and not lose a step. No big deal.
Like clowns and werewolves.
Werewolf clowns, I guess, is like...
werewolf clowns.
That just sounds like a John Carpenter movie.
I think we have time to discuss this spoiler as well. So this one is called Morgan Lash. It's a Queen of Spades. She is a 3-stat, 3-influence, outlaw kind of type person, dude, that used to be Sloan Gang. She is a Huckster 0. Her ability reads, if your outfit is Sloan, Morgan's cost is reduced by the highest bounty among your dudes. Your shooter has +2 bullets if they have more bounty than the opposing shooter. And she has a react ability that reads, after you declare your shooter, increase their bounty by 2. Oh, by the way, she costs 11 to play and has an upkeep of 3, which is that the most expensive dude we have ever seen in Doomtown Reloaded so far?
Could be.
I think so.
Wow.
Not far from it.
So do we have to know Morgan Lash, or is she someone completely new?
This was one of the requests that Pinnacles had for us, was to incorporate Morgan Lash from the Cackler graphic novel somehow. And when that request came through, I was looking at Emery's initial design, and there was a card he had in there. It looked a little different mechanically than it does now, that fit perfectly. And it was already costed really highly. It wasn't a huckster, and she was a huckster. So I was like, can we make that a huckster? And then you have Morgan Lash.
I think that kind of ties in too when we talked about the story options. You know, as you're reading the Cackler, you get a little backstory in her being with the witches, which I believe was in 1881. So we were allowed to maybe take a step, you know, look at what she would be at that time or before that. So where you see her as a Huckster 0 now, you may later see her as a higher level Huckster.
Is she going to be like the iconic character of this faction in the future? Because she is a very influence and bullet heavy dude, and she is the queen, which is also a value that has before been oftentimes associated with like the head of a gang or a faction.
It's possible.
That's a good answer.
Us and me are just poking. We're like, come on. what can we get out of there?
It's important to realize that a lot of the characters in the Deadlands lore are quite a bit more powerful than we're used to seeing in the Doomtown lore. You know, Ivor was a servitor, but he wasn't like Hellstrom, who is a servitor. And there's a power level difference there. And that doesn't necessarily mean she's going to be the leader for the faction, but she is powerful enough to be a leader. Kind of concept is what we're looking at.
Yeah, I think I like the design really much. And I wish I had read the Kekla graphic novels now.
Go do it. It's good.
I think if you do, you might see why she's costed so heavily.
Okay.
So, is the Sloan Gang is it going to be given a different moniker, or is it going to still be the Sloan Gang, but it just is expanded in View?
I think we're going to stick with the current monikers for the time being, just to avoid confusion. What you're going to see is a thematic expansion. And if it comes up later that we decide to change it, we will definitely make sure that it is clearly stated why and all of that.
As she is a really costly but also very mighty dude, does that mean that the game is going to try and move a bit more to the late game? Is the meta going to be a bit more control-y than before?
As you have a literal Gen Con champion also on this call, Mr. Lapp.
What?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Of course not. One thing that we did notice was that kind of the classic solution of, well, if I never let my opponent get anything started, I can just win the game. So one thing that I'm very heavily concerned about and keeping a close eye on is just sort of when aggro kind of becomes blitz, and when it's kind of just like turn one Doomtown becomes the optimal strategy. Lapp can speak to this more, but one thing that we noticed was that a lot of times the solution a lot of people had to their problems was, well, if I just blitz them, then I don't have to worry about it. While you want to never kind of say no to blitz, because it is something that should exist, you don't want it to be the optimal strategy. Just like you would be worried if super stacked decks like 16-3 was the only deck type that was viable. Or if kind of at some points a lot of people felt that Landslide was the only viable deck type for tournament play. We're really going to try to keep an eye on, I would say, those kind of the extremes in terms of deck types and archetypes, and really try to make it more so that more variety in terms of length of the game deck types can kind of also flourish in the meta.
To speak on Gen Con, the reason I ended up playing Blitz and Den was I had heard a lot of people were going with influence-heavy decks to stall out Landslide to time. There was a very interesting deck that I did play against that was all about stacking up it was a turret deck. It stacks up the Morgan Deed with turrets, drops the Morgan champion, and has like 60 influence. So Landslide would never beat it. Then we had the 108 decks. There were a couple that won the events prior to Saturday and did well in the final event, which was the 2-4 King deck. That was all about going with Ivor's with the Rose, the Sunday's Best, and the new hats, so that at time they would never beat you. So my theory was, well, I'm just going to beat every deck before they get started. The real issue with that deck was Rico. That's why you saw the errata on Rico going to 0 influence. We want to have Blitz have that challenge that if you're going to do that, you better do it quickly, because only a few deeds is going to beat you if you're only going to have a 3 influence start to get that advantage. Or try it without Rico and kind of take your chances. But knowing my opponent's hand and being able to react to it was the real issue. If I saw you had a cheating card, Barton goes back in the deck. Against those 2-4 King decks, all I had to do was start Alley and do nothing else. I never had to play a Kidnap because they weren't coming at me. They were reliant on Jacqueline and just sitting back and building up. So we want to avoid that kind of issue. You also see in the floor rules now, there's less points awarded for a win at time, because we're trying to, and an increased time to 55 minutes. So we're trying to get people to actually play a game and build a town. I think that's definitely one of Emery's goals. So again, we're not trying to eliminate Landslide or the influence decks or Blitz. We want those all to be viable options, but we're hoping just for some more variety in the game, the kind that you see on a casual level also be seen in tournament play.
I think with our limited tourney experience, I think we encountered the same problem, that the decks were really strong who could be at time just nobody was playing any control points, just because influence would be enough when the time is running out. So
right.
That was big. When nobody builds a town, it's not Doomtown anymore.
It's just Doom at that point.
Yeah. pretty much. So, because I think the maneuvering and all the stuff is the fun part in Doomtown, and if that's not happening, you could play, I don't know, any other card game which doesn't involve building a map and moving and like strategizing while you're actually playing, and not just
I've been paying attention lately. I really like the horse decks out of Regulators, because I feel like they're finally getting that, the movement of the game to be shown in that chess match. The last tournament I played in, that's what I lost to in the finals, and I was very impressed with that deck and with that outfit card. I'm glad to see that being more of a strategy in actually playing the cards that allow you to maneuver around the town.
I played a horse deck in Copenhagen, and the problem with horse decks is then that if the other guy is not building a town, it's hard to move. You build the town kind of for yourself, that you have some space where you can actually maneuver and set things up and try to surprise the opponent, not with cards or with events you packed, but just with your maneuvering, and that's actually the really strong part of the game.
Right.
And I can also speak to that. One thing that I've noticed is that after I'd say the first two deeds, people get very reluctant to sometimes build deeds.
Yeah, I remember that was a strategy people had against Fourth Ring, particularly the Law Dogs Hang'em decks. Yeah. Early on, after Paralysis Mark, they were just not building deeds. They were waiting until they had the cards in hand to take out all the hucksters. Yeah. And in that case, you're just playing murder the board. You're not building the town because of all the toys Fourth Ring had to take it over, which is, again, why we're happy to see the Paralysis Mark. But also, if you guys recall, right after that errata, someone won an Outlaw event, showing that Fourth Ring could be more versatile. So again, we're not trying to take out these archetypes that they're not playable. We're just trying to make all of them playable.
Designing for Doomtown is definitely a challenge to try to make sure that as many things are as viable as possible. But my honest belief, though, is that the health of the meta and the health of the card pool, it's really a reflection of how much time and effort you put into your play testing, and also kind of what the play testers do for us. We have made some mistakes, and with certain cards, Paralysis Mark being one, Hot Lead Flying kind of got out of hand, I think, a little bit in certain regards. Especially now with more experience, we're getting a better handle on how to nip these things in the bud, and also our play testers are a lot more experienced now, so they can kind of see problems before they happen. As far as I know, we haven't really had, and I'll probably get reamed out for this, but we haven't had too many problem cards in more of the recent sets, in terms of at least them being meta breaking in any sort of way. But that might be blissful optimism.
No, it's my experience as well.
I was going to say, I think Blood Moon Rising, people really liked that set and started to see where some of the outfits were getting things they were missing, and trying to fix a few of the issues. Like Law Dogs got a decent boost. I think you'll see more of that. But yeah, I would agree that the last few sets have been really good.
I think we're kind of running low on time, so we need to get this to a close. Although I feel like we could keep talking about where we are right now for ages. So, guys, it was an honor and a pleasure having you on the podcast. And as there is still a lot of stuff to talk about, I hope that you could be our guests again someday. That would be great.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Maybe we'll just get one person out at a time. They can talk about what they focus on a little bit.
Cool idea.
So we're looking forward to having you back here. And in the meantime, Hans and me, I'm just going to talk for you, Hans. Hans and me, wish you all the best.
What are we doing?
No, we're just
Tell me, please.
Wish you the best for your endeavors. And, we hope that everything will keep going in this great direction that everything is headed to right now. So is there anything that you as Pinebox Entertainment would want to say on air right now, like to the Doomtown players all around the world?
Keep playing Doomtown.
Yeah, nipped it in the bud.
Yeah, got it.
All right, so
The only thing I would say is that I think I speak for all of us when I say it's an absolute pleasure to keep the game going, and we're hoping we can make it just as great and better for everyone down the road.
I think the only thing I would add is just to ask the player base to be patient. We're this is continuing something that has ended twice essentially. So we want to do this right, and we want to do good by the fans. So that's what our main focus is. So if it seems like that we're not saying anything right away or withholding information, we're just trying to make the best product that we can for you guys.
Alex, David, Emre, and Hans, I wish you all a good night and hope to talk to you soon.
Yeah, have a good one.
All right, take care, guys.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. You can send in your questions, feedback, or comments to booteddudes@gmail.com or on facebook.com/booteddudes, all in one word. Music used with kind permission from Wellbad. You can find them at wellbad.de or facebook.com/wellbadmusic. Please, if you like this podcast, consider writing a review with text or just the stars, because it helps other people who are looking for podcasts about Doomtown Reloaded find us on iTunes.
Yeah.